Ed Blakely has served in different capacities under a succession of presidential administrations, has guided government policy on urban planning and is a widely cited academic. My name is Sean Britton from 2SER 107.3 in Sydney, and each week Ed and I have a chat about what's the latest news out of the United States, talking everything politics, planning and policy from sea to shining sea. Find us on iTunes, Whooshka, Facebook and Twitter at US of Ed. Donald Trump has had a few things to say this week, so we're going to get through them. But first off, he said, not for the first time, he's perfectly willing to shut down the government if he doesn't get the measures of border security that have been a central issue of his presidency since the get-go through. First thoughts, Ed?
Well, this is too close to the time when people will blame all the Congress, and particularly the existing elected congressmen, and the chances of him not having what he wants would be very great. So I think this is a very empty threat.
Yeah, as you say, a shutdown would reflect quite badly on the Republicans, especially given they are in control of the House and the Senate.
Yes, and that's exactly what the people would say. They're in control. Now, how's he going to shut down, particularly if the Republicans vote for the issue and the Democrats? So he's basically blocking his own party, isn't he?
Well, one might say that Trump really doesn't seem to give a damn what the 2018 results would be. Would that be fair to say?
No, I do think he cares. And with his base, this would play well. But his base isn't running in every state and in every campaign. So it's not a smart thing to do.
Iran. This week, Trump seems to be following the same pattern on Iran as he did with North Korea. A war of words, big attacking statements, then a little bit of, well, maybe we can make a deal, and offers of a sit-down. Iranian leaders aren't biting yet, but it's hard to imagine them staying away from the table forever.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. Hey, if a strategy works in football or basketball or whatever, you keep using it. And that strategy worked with North Korea. So now he's trying to use the same strategy with the Iranians. The difference is a great deal of difference with their connections with Europe, their connections with the rest of the Middle East, and they don't really pretend the danger that North Korea pretended, because they have no nuclear weapon with a carrying capacity. So if he wants to push them in the wrong direction, he'll really have a fight on his hands.
And just before we talk about the Russia investigation, Rudy Giuliani, we've officially gone from there was no collusion to collusion is not a crime. I've heard it suggested, I'm not sure it's actually a joke, that next Republicans will be saying the Democrats and Hillary were idiots for not colluding with a foreign power to win the 2016 election. Is Giuliani helping or hurting at this point?
Giuliani's helping everybody who's investigating the president for anything, because he makes either the case worse for the president or laughable. In this case, it's laughable that he'd say you cannot find the president guilty of collusion and that's not a crime. It is a crime, or there'd be no such word in the dictionary, and there'd certainly be no such word in the civil and criminal codes. So Giuliani is making a big, big mess. The question is, when is Giuliani going to get the boot? It's only a matter of time.
And yet Donald Trump did agree with Giuliani that collusion is not a crime, and now furthermore on his favourite medium, Twitter, saying Attorney General Jeff Sessions should stop this rigged witch hunt right now before it continues to stain our country any further.
That sounds like a crime to me.
It does. It sounds a little bit obstruction-y.
Justice.
Yeah.
Nixon didn't go that far. So I think this is really very bad news for the president, and it sounds like somebody else was in the room when the whole issue of this meeting came up on the 16th, and that person's going to cough it up pretty soon, and that's what he's really scared of. Cohen, by recording him and by keeping very close records, is making a record that the special prosecutor can use to buttress his other evidence.
It is also worth remembering at this point, the Mueller investigation has been going on for far less time than many other similar investigations, with many more charges actually being laid?
He has laid a lot of charges. Manafort is uh, in trial now and facing big penalties. There are several other people who've already pleaded and they're ready to go to jail. So this is going a lot faster than the former investigations. No one wants to pay attention to that, but he's marching forward. The real issue for the president, he's gathering steam as he marches forward.
Yeah, indeed. Paul Manafort's trial, as you mentioned there, begun this week up on 18 criminal charges, and the quote from the US attorney, assistant attorney, which sums this up quite nicely, I think. Paul Manafort believed he was above the law. It kind of seems to be a prevailing attitude.
It is a prevailing attitude. It's the president's attitude. The law is for lesser people. Income taxes are for lesser people. He runs the government. It is his wall, and on and on and on. He just doesn't get it. He is a servant of the people and all the people of the United States. So this is not going to end well.
And before we move completely off Donald Trump, the Koch brothers, Charles and David Koch, the Republican Party's biggest, most influential donors. Donald Trump, just picking fights with everybody this week, called the brothers a total joke in political circles and said he had never sought their support because he didn't need their money or bad ideas. Ed, we've been talking about the splintering of the Republican Party. The amount of money that the Koch brothers invest in Republicans, is it likely to be another wedge between different halves of the party, or is it going to be a salve after Donald Trump is moved on?
Well, I think the Koch brothers are so far out there on all their policy ideas and issues, they don't represent any constituency that either party can support. So their only alternative is to begin to find candidates, either to run in the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, that represent their ideas. That's going to be hard to do. It'll be damaging. But I think that's what they're going to end up doing. They'll damage both parties with this silly business.
And speaking of the very, very, very rich, Donald Trump wants to give them even more tax cuts. Last year's tax bill cut the corporate income tax rate to 21% from 35%. Now looking at cutting capital gains tax, even if they have to circumvent the Congress to do so. About time all those rich folks got a bit of a break, Ed?
Oh, gee, I feel so sorry for them. My handkerchief is dripping from all the tears I've been shedding. The thing that is not selling is the tax cuts. Poll after poll have shown the American people, particularly the middle class, think these tax cuts are hurting them. And when they look at their taxes, they are hurting them. So these tax cuts are not helpful. And even the wealthy people don't want them anymore because they know how injurious it is for them continuing to do business and do business in their own communities with their own constituents. They know people too. They have workers. None of the workers have gotten anything from the current tax cuts. They've used this to buy back stocks and other things, to give bigger boost to their own employees and the higher wage people and members of the board of directors. So this is not selling well at all. Donald's doing it because he thinks he might do what we call in the U.S. the Hail Mary pass, that long ball you throw and hope somebody catches it downfield and will score for you, because all of the rest of his programs are dead in the water.
And rather appropriately, when we talk about Hail Marys, did just want to end on the one with Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions, a target of Trump, as we mentioned before, wants to start a religious liberty task force to protect the rights of Christians in America who Sessions believes are being persecuted. We know Vice President Pence, he's big on religion, and a lot of Trump's base, white Americans, they feel like they're under threat, as do presumably a lot of white Christians. I got to admit, Ed, I hear the words Religious Liberty Task Force being talked about by one of the most powerful figures in the US. I get a little bit of a chill.
I don't remember what his name was, Adolf something or other,
Hmm.
had a very similar kind of task force to purge the nation of those people who were destroying the inner um, capacities of the nation. I don't want to carry this too far because it will sound like I'm accusing Trump of being Hitlerish, but he's following the same script. Why all these dictators come up with programs to purge people who are not on their program? He's done this in the most obvious ways. In the last week, he has said CNN reporters cannot come to his open press conferences. Now, that's a violation of every bit of the First Amendment. The man doesn't get it.
US of Ed is produced in the studios of 2SER 107.3 in Sydney. To help support the work we do, go to 2ser.com/donate. Ed and I'll be back next week to talk the latest in American news and politics. Subscribe on iTunes and Whooshka to stay up to date, and show us some love on Facebook and Twitter at